Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's pizza webinar on building Power BI dashboards. We're excited to have you join us. I'm Michelle Robinson, the Director of the Learning Center here at System Source, and today we're going to have a presentation by Jon O'Keefe. Jon has a great demonstration on Power BI, which will show you a lot of the things that we teach in our hands-on classes. So give you a nice taste of that. I do want to say that after Jon's demonstration, and we are going to get our hands right into it, we will do some Q&A. So do take time all throughout the presentation to put questions in the questions box or in chat, and we will try to get all of those answered before we get to the end of the webinar. And before I get too far in, I do want to let you know, if you haven't received your pizza yet, you can email Mike Jones. Jon will move the slide forward for you, and you can see that we have his email address there for you. So mjones@syssrc.com, and he'll follow up on the pizza for you. During the webinar, we are going to have all of the attendees on mute. But please do, as I said, utilize chat and the questions as you need. You'll want to probably view your webinar in full screen mode as well, because we're dealing with a lot of detailed information in Power BI, so that'll be the best way to view. When we're finished today, we're going to ask you to give us your feedback, just a really quick survey that lets us know what you thought of today's session and if there are some ways that we can help you in future sessions. So please take just a couple moments to go and do that for us. Let me move us forward a slide and give you an update, a quick overview of System Source. So this is my quick commercial for those of you who might be first-time attendees. System Source is a regional systems integrator, and many of our clients come to us first to get training. They want to train their staff in applications or technical topics or even project management, and that kind of helps keep the lower help desk costs. We hold our public classes virtually and from your home or office. We also can do private courses on your site or ours. We have carefully set up classrooms that you can rent for your own private classes, and we do have quite a few of our clients do that. Others rely on us for our presentation systems rooms, and this includes conference rooms, classrooms, video conferencing, digital signage, all kinds of great things going on in our AV group. And then, of course, improving IT infrastructure sometimes requires the expertise of our consultants. We specialize in cloud migration, systems management, virtualization, project management, and infrastructure design. That's a hard word at noon. And then, of course, one improvement some of our clients seek is better use of the cloud, either through hosting applications in our data center or at our Amazon Web Services groups. And then after we do all of this improvement, we have to maintain it. So we offer service and support through our help desk reactively. And then we also do proactive work in our managed services group. So making sure that all your patches and things are up to date and fielding some of those help desk calls for your staff. And if we've done all of this right, at some point it comes time to acquire again and purchase new machines to keep up with what we're doing going forward. So that is a little bit about System Source, and I want to save all my time for Jon, because Jon has some really great stuff to show you. And I have to laugh, Jon, because people have no idea how much you're packing into a 1-hour session. So I am going to turn it over to you and let you get the show on the road.
All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, there's a decent amount of stuff in here, so we're going to go through it. I'm going to try and go at a pace that gets us through everything. If we skip anything, hopefully there'll be time for questions at the end. I am going to personally make sure that we at least have 5 minutes for questions at the end. I guarantee everybody here, you'll get 5 minutes for questions at least. Which isn't always the case in a Jon O'Keefe webinar. That's me. My name's Jon O'Keefe. I am a System Source instructor. I've been doing this for a long time. I teach Power BI as well as Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Access, and a bunch of our AI offerings. So I'm the guy you usually get with Power BI. So hopefully I'll make a good case for you today to at least explore taking some Power BI classes with System Source here. Now, rather than go over and do the typical webinar thing where I tell you and I present a bunch of slides, I'd rather just show you what Power BI can do. So what I want to start with is a typical situation that you might be presented with at an organization. So let's say that over the course of what we'll say is many years, your organization has started collecting a lot of data. Now, most organizations collect data from a bunch of disparate data sets. You might have a point of sale system that's producing data. You might have an ERP system. You might have internal databases. You might have Amazon Cloud. You might be using Microsoft Forms. There could be lots of different ways in which data is coming in. And sometimes that data makes a lot of sense. You're able to slap it into an application like Microsoft Excel, do some functions or formulas, and you can proceed on from there. But oftentimes what organizations are finding now is that they've got all this different type of data and they have no way of really relating that data to one another. It's in different types of systems. It's using different keys. It can be very complex. So organizations are looking for ways without breaking the bank to take all of this disparate data, combine it, and then utilize it in the way in which most people like to make decisions. And I'll tell you that that way is through pictures. Yes, pictures, a picture worth 1,000 words. So what Power BI is Power BI is an application that allows us to take data from over 90 different sources, combine it into data sets that relate to one another, and then use those relatable data sets to create visualizations. So here you can see that we've got a bunch of different data sets. I'm going to show you here. I have an Access database here. So this is something that's typical inside a lot of organizations. They'll use Access to create relational databases. So I've got all these different tables here, all these different queries and forms and whatnot inside of Access here. I've got all my reports built. And you can see here that some of these things are related, some of them aren't. We've got different primary keys here so we can see what's related and what types of relationships we have there. So we have an Access database, typical inside a lot of medium and large size organizations. This is a great way to store and understand your data. I also have, because of course we do, a couple of different Excel worksheets here. So here you can see I have a sales order worksheet. This looks like transactional data. I'll make it a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. We have an order ID, an order date, a ship date, shipping method, customer ID, quantity, sales, profit, shipping cost, all typical things that you might see in a transactional database. Now this goes from 2021 all the way down to the end of, what's our date here? Oh, these are too big. These are too small here. Goes all the way down to 2023. So as you can see here, we have a couple of years worth of data. In this same Excel sheet, I also have an older set of sales orders, same exact columns, just older dates. So while this isn't combined, and this is typical inside a lot of organizations, there are lots of things that we can do with this data once it's in Power BI, and I'm going to show you that. We also have a products list here. This appears to be completely separate from our sales orders, but we have all of our products that we sell inside our organization just listed in our Excel table here. We've got a subcategory, category, product ID, unit price, very typical stuff there. So we've got some different product data here. Now, we've got another Excel spreadsheet because why would everything be in one place, of course? And that's okay. With Power BI, we can easily combine all of this stuff. Here we have a sales rep table that looks like it is from a pivot. So we've got some pivoted data here showing our sales reps, the regions they work in, and what it is that they've got here in terms of probably units sold or something like that. Really don't have a lot of information, but we've got that there. And then we have what is very common when you're building relational data is we have what's called a data table. This is a table here that gives us a specific date listing. Now, for those of you that have worked with relational data before, you know that oftentimes you have to create some sort of key in order to relate different data tables. One of the best ways to do that inside of Power BI is through the use of a date table, because dates are fairly ubiquitous across most organizations, right? So like most of your data will have some sort of time element to it. And with Power BI, we can easily either use a date table from Excel or create one ourselves using something called DAX, which is Data Analysis Expression Language, which is the way inside of Power BI that we can create a bunch of different custom tables or variables or measures, whatnot. So we've got all of this Excel data here, again, fairly typical for what an organization will have. And then the piece de resistance is, I don't know if any of you have seen one of these in a while, but this is a CSV file. So a CSV file, comma, separated value. Most of the time you don't see them in their original value here like you do in a notepad, but oftentimes you'll see them expressed in Excel. But CSV files are a very flat way of storing data. They don't take up a lot of space, but they can be difficult to work with because, again, we have a bunch of commas separating as opposed to different columns. So we've got a bunch of different types of data here. Now, we are being asked by our organization to go ahead and we have a bunch of different questions coming from a bunch of different people inside our fake company here. We're being asked, how is the industry doing? Now, I don't know if you recall, but I don't really have any industry data. So I don't even have that to start to answer that question. I'm going to have to find that. And luckily, Power BI makes that very easy. We're being asked, when are we going to hit a certain profit point? How have our sales been trending per region? Which of our product categories are most successful? How are our product categories performing per state or region? Which of our products are most profitable? Which of our products are least profitable? Which of our customers are most profitable? So we've got a lot of different types of questions being asked of us. And so as a citizen data scientist, as someone who is utilizing Power BI for what we call self-service BI, these are the types of questions that your organization may ask you. And so how can we take all of that data that we've got, the CSV file, the Excel files, the Access database, industry data, which we don't even have yet, how can we take all of that data and how can we turn it into something that helps us make decisions? And so to do that, we are going to utilize Power BI. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch to our Power BI interface here. Power BI is a program that comes with Microsoft, the Microsoft Office suite here. The Power BI desktop version is free. Anyone can use it. There are some limitations as to what it can do versus if you pay for it. And there are a variety of different licensing structures out there that organizations typically invest in depending on how much data sharing they want to do. But at its core, Power BI is another Microsoft application that once again allows us to take all of those disparate data sets that I showed you, load them in, create or foster relationships between that data, and then build visualizations to help us fully understand exactly what it is that we're going to do here. So on your screen now, you're looking at the Power BI interface. The Power BI interface is very similar to other Microsoft Office interfaces in that it works via tabs up top. So we have a home tab, an insert tab, a modeling tab, a view tab, etc. And in each of these tabs is once again a ribbon ribbon being the way in which we interact with most Microsoft Office applications. Each tab, of course, having a different commands available on the ribbon. Now, Power BI also has a couple of other different interface options here. On the right-hand side, we have a variety of different panes. These panes are where we can load in data and build our visualizations. And on the left-hand side, we have different views where we can view our reports that we create, which are a collection of visualizations. We can view the data behind the scenes, and we can view the relationships that exist between that data or create new relationships if necessary. Now, importing data into Power BI is incredibly easy. Even if you do not have a lot of experience with databases or understanding how relational data works, if your data is set up even in the slightest way to be relational, Power BI will automatically recognize that. And when you import data in, it's going to give you the snapshot of everything that you need to be able to build exciting, compelling visualizations so you can do data analysis. And whether you're the one doing the data analysis or you're just creating the visualization so someone else can do data analysis, this program is perfectly positioned for an organization of any size to use. Now, let's get started and load in some data. One of the nice features of Power BI is that we have this whole data grouping here on our home tab. So we have some of the more common data connections. We have an Excel workbook, the one like Data Hub, where either your organization might store what we call PIBIX files or PIBID files, which are data files that are associated with Power BI. Or you can go out and actually find publicly available data if necessary. You, of course, have the ability to go get SQL Server. You have the Microsoft Dataverse here, and then any recent sources. Under the Get Data here, you can see that if I select the More option, these are all of the different data types that Power BI can go ahead and connect to. So if you're curious if it can work with Microsoft Forms, we can go ahead and we can look, our sheets, sorry, not forms. We can see here that we have Google Sheets, we have Smartsheet Legacy, Smartsheet Beta. If you're curious if it can work with SQL, we have a bunch of different SQL here. If you're curious about Oracle, we can connect to Oracle database. In our case here, I'm going to do the obvious one, and I'm going to connect to some Excel workbooks here, because I've already showed you these Excel workbooks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the first Excel workbook, which is called My Footprint Sports. It's the name of our organization. Now you see here, when I connect to My Footprint Sports, I am given the 3 different sheets that were present inside that document. So I have a date sheet, an order sheet, and a sales rep sheet. And if I need to preview the data, I can simply select from the sheets. So here, this is our date sheet. It gives me a brief preview so I can look at the data. I'm also going to look at that sales rep sheet because that's the one I'd like to load in. And so once I load in the Excel in, I'm given a choice of loading in 1 or more sheets. For those of you that are familiar, this is essentially, I'm doing a query into the data that's there. So I'm going to be loading and taking a snapshot of that data and loading it into Power BI. So it's essentially running the same as a query does inside of your database. I am not loading the actual file, so therefore any changes that I make to this will not be reflected in the original Excel file. Now there is a way in which we can connect to live data sources inside of Power BI, and at which point then you have the choice of either having the data fed in live or querying the data, once again creating a query. So essentially a snapshot of that data in its time and moment there. Now, inside of Power BI, we can always refresh our data sources, and Power BI will go back out to the original data set, whether it's through a connection to a SQL database or just finding and locating the original Excel file, and it can update data that way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load in our sales rep data. Now, one thing you're going to note here, and the way that Power BI really functions is it functions on a column structure. So every column is going to be a measure. And those measures are what we're going to use to build visualizations. So now if you're seeing this, you're going to note here that we've got some null columns. I have no column headers. Column headers are pretty important inside of Power BI. This data is pivoted. So therefore, it's not really giving me the kind of options that I want to be able to manipulate it. Now, one option would be to go to the original Excel file and, of course, change the structure inside of Excel. If you're an Excel power user, this would be fairly quick and easy to do. But not every person who uses Power BI is going to be an Excel power user. And you will not always have access to the raw data. Sometimes what you're just going to have to do is utilize Power BI to make the changes for you. Thankfully, Power BI contains a couple of different ways in which we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load in this data set, but rather than just load it in, I have the option of transforming the data. So I'm going to click Transform Data. And this is going to open up the Power Query editor. Now, Power Query is built on the mashup language, the M language. If you're familiar with that, this may look familiar to you. Now, I'll make my Power Query a little bit bigger. And we can see here that I have a bunch of different options. Once again, we have a ribbon up here where I have a Transform tab. I can add columns. I can view. I have different tools there for diagnostics and, of course, a help there. On the right-hand side, I can rename this query, and I can see applied steps. Now, once again, this is built on M, so if you're familiar with the language, there's an advanced editor, so you can do all of this stuff the way a lot of programmers like to do it, which is wicked manual. I am not a fan of that. I'm not a programmer, so I'm going to do it the way that it was intended by Power BI, and I'm going to use the tricks that I know here. So first things first, I need to get rid of these rows here. These top two rows are no good to me. I just don't need them. It's a bunch of null values. All it's going to do is screw up my reporting when I choose to build some visualizations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select up top here this handy little remove rows feature. I'm given the option of removing the top rows, the bottom rows, or even alternative rows. I can even remove duplicates, blank errors, or anything along those lines. I just need to remove the top two rows. How many rows would you like to remove, John? 2, please. Thank you so much, Power BI. And now those rows are gone. I still don't have appropriate column headers, so I need to also address that because I don't want my measures to be column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to use this other handy feature, which is use first row as headers. So I'm going to select that. And now it makes the first row into my headers. If my data set is not set up correctly when it's coming in, I have the ability through the use of a Power Query here to be able to make a bunch of different changes and manipulate that data. Now, I've got this sales rep column. And as you'll notice, it's got this WUS dash blah, 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 their names. This is not how I want this. When you build inside of Power BI, each column should represent a single measure that you're going to use to analyze data. In this case, I appear to have regional data and name data in the same column. So I need to go ahead and split those columns. Luckily, again, Power BI can do that. So I can select split column. It's just a command up here. I can choose a variety of different ways to split. Thankfully, this has what we call a delimiter. A delimiter is a character or space that separates two different arguments inside of a column here. So I'm going to go ahead and select by delimiter. Power BI recognizes that although there's a bunch of different types of delimiters here, like colons, commas, spaces, equal signs, that this is a custom, and it puts the dash in for me. Now I can choose where to split. If, for example, there were multiple dashes, somebody had a hyphenated last name, I can choose to split it the leftmost delimiter or the rightmost delimiter or each occurrence. Here, we're just going to go ahead and split by delimiter. And now I have two separate columns here, and I can easily just go ahead and rename this to region. I can go ahead and rename this to sales rep. Now, I will give you guys a pro tip, something I teach in the class. You want to be as specific as possible when naming your measures here, because eventually, as you build Power BI, and eventually, as you will see, you will have a lot of different measures to build visualizations from. And so naming things becomes very, very important because you need to know what it is that you're building with. Otherwise, you will build the wrong data into the wrong report and it will help no one. So naming is very important here, making sure that we get our column names correct. Now, if I were to go ahead and say, well, I'm done with this data, I would end up with a bunch of weird columns here because this is pivoted data. I've got 131, and then it goes all the way through 1231. I don't want this data pivoted. Thankfully, I can select all of it, right-click, and I can go ahead and I can unpivot this data. When I unpivot the data, now I have the columns that I like because now I can rename this date, and then I can change the type to date. And so now Power BI will recognize this as dates, meaning that I can create relationships between this or another date table that I might create. Now, as far as value over here, we're going to rename this to sales count. I can move my date column over to the left very simply by clicking and dragging. And now I have a nice little data set here that I've taken from something that wasn't usable by Power BI and quickly transformed it. You can see over here on the right, I have a bunch of applied steps, meaning that if I wanted to go back and delete, or if I made a mistake somewhere, I can go back and delete this here. I could delete a step such as changing the type of data. If I go back and delete the step, you'll see here that the date column goes back to being a text column. I'll simply change that back to date just so we've got it. So even if you make a mistake, you can always go back and correct your mistakes using the applied steps here. This, of course, can be minimized. So can the name change here. Once I'm done building out the data, then I can go ahead and select close and apply. Now in my data pane, I have a sales reps data, and utilizing that, I could easily build a visualization here. So now I can see what year they did it in. We can go ahead and with the date here, we might take out, for example, quarter, month, and day. So now I can go ahead and add in sales count. So I can build a visualization. We'll do month here. So now I've got a visualization that shows me sales rep performance over time based on their count there. And you'll notice just based on this basic visualization here, I have a couple of cool things. I have a tooltip. A tooltip means that I can hover my mouse over any data point here and I can get specific information about it. Also, Power BI immediately built in a legend for me. I could, of course, add and change that legend as I want to, but for now, this is just a basic visualization based on the data we've added. Now, I have to get some industry data. And industry data is something that I really don't have anything of. So I might have to go out to the web. Luckily, Power BI contains a web connector, and I can go ahead and I can take a web address, such as something from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I can go ahead and grab that data. When I click OK, Power BI is going to go out and it's going to navigate to that website. Here you can see that I can go ahead and select and look at what it looks like on the web. So I can get some preview here. I can also select one of these tables and pull in this data into our report. So it's just as easy as knowing the website and being able to pull in the data by selecting Establishment Data Table B and selecting Transform Data. I once again can open my query editor, at which point here I could start going ahead and editing and shaping this data if I needed to. From the query editor, by the way, you can also add in a new source of data. Here I could go ahead and select, and I could select our Access database and select Connect. Then I can open up our Access database here. And once again, it's going to give me the option of either pulling in Access queries or Access tables. Now, something that you'll note here is that when you do something that already has relationships set up, Power BI is smart enough to know what those relationships are. So if I'm interested in pulling in our bookings table for the cabins that we rent, I can also select related tables, and we'll find any tables that have a pre-existing relationship with table bookings. And I can select and choose which data to bring in. Once again, remembering that when I bring it in, it comes in as a query. When I am done and I click Close and Apply, you'll see over here that we have new data sources being added in now. So we have this Establishment Data Table B, we have this table bookings over here. So as we add in data, it gets added to our data pane and then allows us to build visualizations. Now, one of the things that's most important inside of Power BI is making sure that you have a date table. Now, earlier I showed you that we could build a date table inside of Excel, but we can also just build one from scratch. To do such, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to utilize something called DAX. DAX is Data Analysis Expression Language. It's similar to building functions and formulas inside of Excel, except that it is infinitely more complex. Well, maybe not infinitely, but it is more complex, allows me to do a bunch of different things. So here, utilizing DAX, I can do the command. I can tell it to create a calendar starting on 2019, January 1st, and ending on 2024, December 31st. And now there is a date table with all of those dates. When I select the column here, I can change the data type from date to time to just standard date. And so now I have a date table. And when we go into our model view here, you're going to see that we've got all of these queries. And now I can create a relationship, meaning I can go ahead and create these relationships inside of Power BI by simply dragging date to date. Now we have a one-to-many relationship. When I click save, there's now a relationship created between those. For those of you that are familiar with relational databases, relationships basically allow me to then interrogate one piece of data versus another piece of data. So two different queries can be interrogated at the same time because they have a relationship with each other. For those of you that are familiar with relationships, Power BI allows you to manually create relationships, and it will also automatically create relationships. So once we go ahead and we start loading in our data, eventually we get all of our data loaded in. And what we end up with is going to look a little something like this. On the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see that we have a variety of different data sources that we can build from. We have customers, we have establishment data, we have order dates, we have order profit here, products, sales orders, older sales orders, sales reps, etc. We have a lot of different data here that we can start to build visualizations with. Now, previously I had showed you behind the scenes, I showed you what the relationship looks like and how we create a relationship. Now we're going to go ahead and we can look inside of here and we can see that we have a variety of relationships created. And when you hover over one of these relationship lines, it's going to show me sales orders relates to our product table by the product ID column. Customers relates to our sales orders by the customer ID column. Here you can see that in our customer table, we have one customer ID per customer, right? That makes sense. For every customer, they have a singular customer ID. But in our sales orders, we have many product IDs or customer IDs because a customer can order more than one product and a customer can order more than once. Typically, the way you'll build relationships inside of Power BI is what we refer to as a star schema. A star schema will have a table that sits in the center of it that is typically transactional data. And then it will have tables that sit around it that contain evidentiary data, data that you're going to use to support your visualizations. In our case here, the way that that our star schema is set up is sales orders sits at the center, products, customers, order date, ship date all sit on the outside. Now, because they have relationships with one another, we are able to interrogate and build visualizations based on multiple queries. So let me show you some visualizations that we might build in order to answer some of our questions. So the first thing that I know that I need to do is I need to create a KPI page here. So I have this empty page here that we've set up for sales and profit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build a gauge. A gauge here is a great way of doing a KPI. So I'm going to select the gauge visualization. Once I start to build a visualization, I have it selected here. I can go ahead and I can drag data into this visualization. So I can come into sales orders here, and I am going to go ahead and I am going to, for my value, we're going to do profit. So that is how much profit we've made. And then over here, we're going to go ahead and for our maximum value, I'm going to put in sales. So now I can see here what I've built in terms of a KPI for a visualization here. This is a nice little KPI. It's showing me how much profit we've made out of how much total sales we have. Now, let's say that I want to go ahead and I want to add in we want to go ahead and add in like a line to show us where our target goal is. I can open up my formatting pane here. I can go to my gauge axis and I can put in a target. Now our target for profit is 120K. So I'm going to put that in. And now I have a simple visualization that shows me what it is, where we're at in terms of the profit we have and the profit amount that I want. Now, I want to analyze sales by region here. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to build a map. Building maps inside of Power BI is really easy. We're going to go ahead and we're going to select the map visualization. For this visualization, what I'm going to do is I am going to have the location be based on state. Now, remember, I am using multiple queries here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to select state for location, and it's going to show me the state there. Then for my legend, I'm going to select region here. We're going to put in region. Now, for my bubble size, I'm not going to grab it from the customer query. Remember, I have created a relationship between the customer query and the sales query, meaning I can ask questions of customers and products by sales. So I'm going to come back to my visualization. I'm going to come down to my sales here, and I'm going to add in sales to my bubble size. Now I have a nice little map here, and I can see how we're selling per state. And it's just that easy to build a map visualization there. Now, what you're noticing on the screen is I have something called a tooltip. A tooltip allows me to go ahead and when I hover over any data point inside, it's going to give me the information that we've added in to Power BI here. In this case, it's going to show me the state. It's going to show me the region because we have state, region, and then sum of sales. But I might want a tooltip that is a little bit fancier than this. And inside of Power BI, I can actually build my own tooltips. So I have a tooltip page here where I am going to build a visualization. So the visualization here that we're going to build is a stacked column chart. I'm going to make it take up the whole thing. Then we are going to go in our x-axis, we are going to go to our products, and we're going to select category. So I want to see what categories we have. For our y, we're going to put in sales. And then in our legend, I'm going to put in category here. And so now I have a nice little tooltip that I can use here. I've built this. And so in my formatting options, I can make sure that my page information is set to type tooltip. And then when I come back to my sales and profit, I can select here. And on tooltip, I can select my page. And now, instead of it being that simple little text tooltip, I can have it be any sort of type of visualization that I want to display here. So I have my map here that I've built. And as I hover over each of these data points, I can see how we're performing by dollar value in that specific category. We have 3 different categories at this organization. So I can build a map. I can build a KPI. For products, we can go ahead to analyze our products, and we can build a stacked bar chart here. And in that bar chart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze by product. Then for my x-axis here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to analyze by sales. And then for my legend, I have a profit tier. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in at legend. And so now I can start to analyze my products based on profit tier. And you can see it's color coded for me. which is really nice. So now I know that we potentially have a small issue in our organization. I've been asked to talk about the profit of our products. Here you can see that we have our two biggest sellers are low profit items. Now we do have soccer balls, which is our third biggest seller, which is a high profit item. But ideally, what I would like to see as an organization to maximize our company's profits is to have high profit items be at the top of this list. So now that I've started to analyze that, we can go ahead and we can start asking questions internally about what are we going to do if we can't get either the cost of these items down or start selling more to make more of a profit. Now, to analyze cost, because now I've said to myself, why is this such an issue? What's going on with cost? I can make a line chart. And then from there, once again, I'm going to want to analyze by product. So I'm going to add product in, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in cost. And so now I can see here, once again, making this visualization bigger, that the most expensive item that I have is the tennis racket, followed by the baseball, followed by the soccer ball. So what's killing us is the cost of these things. So while I can see up here that baseball 24-pack and tennis racket are our biggest sellers, I can see down here the tennis racket and baseball 24-pack have the highest cost. That is why they are in the lowest profit tier. It has nothing to do with volume, it has to do with cost, which means that I'm going to tell our buyers now to go out and get more and try and find better places, better prices for us on these products. So maybe I can bump them out of the low tier and into the medium tier. So it's super easy to build visualizations. As you can see here, there's tons of different types of visualizations inside of Power BI. Here you can see a variety of different visualizations that have been built on our sales by region and category. Now, one of the great things about Power BI is that your data, and when you build visualizations, they all relate to one another. Now, one thing that I can do here is, if you're familiar with slicers, if you've used Excel and you've set up pivots before, you've used the slicer, we can build a slicer in, and then we can go ahead and have an order date slicer, which allows me to interrogate my data in a specific way. So all of these visualizations relate to one another in some way, shape, or form. Let's say that I'm curious about the performance of our basketball products or our baseball products. I can click on baseball inside this visualization, and you'll notice all of my other visualizations update to show me, okay, well, baseball makes up 36,000 of our $162,000. Here's how we've done in baseball across our 4 different regions. Here's how our baseball sales have performed total. This is our sales forecast for just baseballs. And then by adding in a slicer, I can go ahead and I can adjust the dates. So now I can ask interrogative questions of my data by simply clicking on a visualization. If I click on a different part of the visualization, you can see here that these things are adjusting and moving around. So if I click on apparel here, this is women's apparel. I can see how women's apparel has performed. I can see where it is. I can see what the forecast for women's apparel is. Then I can even adjust my dates and times here, so you can have interactive visualizations built. Now, there's 2 different ways to typically build reports inside of Power BI. What I've showed you here is kind of a more factual, build each visualization and then use the visualizations to interrogate one another. Another option is to be a little bit more design focused on building your visualizations. So this is another set of visualizations that I've built here. This is a market analysis for a company called Van Arsdale. Here we have our slicer up here that we can set up We can still click on any of these visualizations and interrogate our data, but this is set up to be a little bit more visually pleasing. Now, some people will prefer to build their reports like this. You can see here that we have some interactive elements where we can go through different dates and check out different KPIs as they go through. You can see a variety of drill downs that exist. All of this you learn how to build, by the way, in our Power BI classes. Both of the things that I've just shown you, both kind of the basic way of building a report and our building of this more fancy report, you learn how to build both of these in the Power BI classes. Now, one more thing that we can do is that if you have the free version of this, you can share these files with your friends. They can interrogate your data that way. When you start paying, when you pay for the premium version, you can upload these and create organizational dashboards. I'm going to go ahead and show you one of those organizational dashboards here. So we have all of our visualizations built. We have a bunch of different things that we've set up. We have our customer interrogation that we have here, which can go by time and show us customers. We have our map. We have our sales by profit and category. We have our sales profit and cost per month. You know, we have our product visualizations. We have all of our sales here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload these. When I upload it, I get to choose between multiple workspaces. I'm going to select my workspace. It's now going to publish it to the Power BI live service, which is going to enable me to build a dashboard out of it. Oh, whoops. I forgot to click the link. Replace. There's a link that pops up here to open up the Power BI service. So this is Microsoft Fabric. Now here, this is the report that we built. So this is everything that we built inside of there. It comes in pages, and I can analyze it, and I can also share this. I can export it. I can share it to someone inside my organization so that way they can look at it. Inside of my workspace, I have other reports, and using those, I can build dashboards. So I can look at a report here, such as this final report, and I can take this visualization and I can pin it to a new dashboard, webinar today. Now it shows up on my dashboard. So this map is here, and I can hover over and see how we did. I can also go to a different report and grab a different visual, pin it, and add it to the same dashboard that I just did. Now you can have multiple visualizations from multiple reports built into your dashboards. When you have dashboards set up, you can subscribe to them. You can even go in and look at your usage metrics, see who's viewing them. You can chat about them in Teams. And behind the scenes, we can even go in to our semantic models, and we can get insights. These are AI-generated insights about your reports. So you can even have AI help you build visualizations once you are done building your visualizations here. I probably shouldn't have picked this one. This one's a big one. Okay, it finished, good. And so now I can go ahead and I can see a variety of different visualizations that I did not create that are based on the data set that I uploaded here. So if I like this one, this market share, I can pin this and add it right to that dashboard. Once again, remembering, I didn't build that visualization. Artificial intelligence looked at the insights and went and looked at the market share that our organization was having in these segments. And so we have a 74.86% market share in moderation and convenience, and then it goes down from there. So Power BI lets me take from the absolute beginning with raw data coming in from any data, so over 90 different data sources, allows me to load it, transform it, and then build visualizations quickly and easily. Once I have visualizations built inside of the Power BI desktop app, I can interrogate my data through interactive visualizations and the use of slicers and filters. When I'm all set, I can publish this into a public or private workspace, and then people can come in and grab visualizations that they like from my report, from your report, from Deb down the hall's report, and build their own dashboards. All the while, by the way, the information that's feeding these being updated at a pace that I set, usually once every 24 hours, but depending on the service that you have, it could be it could be live data. So all of that is available to you. Okay, I am a minute over my time. I would like to kick it to Michelle for questions.
John, you are so close this time.
I did the best I could, Michelle.
I know. If you want to take a moment and write any questions that you have into the question box, I know we have one there already for John to answer. But John, if you could show the slides for me.
Yes, of course, Michelle. 1 second, please.
Thank you. We have some courses that I want to tell you about that can help you in your Power BI journey. And we're going to move down to the classes that are offered. There are really there's 3 key classes. 2 of them are similar, so I want to explain it to you. John, can you move us forward?
Yes, I'm sorry. There you go.
That's okay. There we go. The first one is Power BI Dashboard in a Day. This is new. This takes you through doing all of that in one day. It's not for the faint of heart. You are working hard the entire day. But we do have that coming up in November, and there's only 4 seats left in that session. The next one's in January. Then the other 2 courses I want to highlight for you is the Power BI Data Analysis Practitioner and the Power BI Data Analysis Professional. And so I know that can be very confusing, so I want to explain the difference between those 2 courses. The Practitioner is the version of the course people would take if they have the free version of Power BI. So that course is 2 days long. Then we have the professional course. It's the same first 2 days, but the 3rd day is really geared towards people who have the paid subscription. Yep. So we teach everybody together at the same time, but only some people stay for day 3, and that would be those of you who have a paid subscription. These classes fill, as you can see, there's only 3 seats left in November, and then the next one for that is in January as well. So I encourage you to take advantage of the discounted pricing for this. And if you're looking for other ways to save money, if you have a group of people that you want to train, we can do a customized Power BI session for your private group, and try and customize it around topics that you're interested in, maybe the way you would want to use Power BI. So that is also an option for that. So you can see some of the students' comments that have been in John's class. As a matter of fact, one of them just left a note in the chat, said, "John, you're a most excellent Power BI instructor." Teresa had taken class with you in the past.
That was a $50 well spent for me.
I know, right?
Getting Teresa to plug me there.
I'm going to turn it over to you for the questions that we have.
Yeah, I see a question here. And so, John, it does a query the same way that like Access does. And so it's a query when it pulls the update. So it's not going to overwrite the data. It doesn't need a service in the middle. But if we're talking about every day it's creating like unique, different data, then every time it pulls it, then yes, it's going to basically, when it does that web pull, it does a query of the data. So it's pulling in a snapshot of the data as it is, but the query is cumulative, meaning that it's not going to overwrite it. It's just going to add to it. So if today there's 1,000 records, right? And then tomorrow 200 more records have been added, it's just going to pull in the 200 more records. But you can have something sit in the middle of it too, John. That is also a best practice that a lot of people use, especially if they don't have control over what the data is natively doing on the website. I showed you a simple way of grabbing data off the website from like the BLS. That's an easy way of doing it. What you're doing is a little bit more complicated, but very possible to do in Power BI.
Awesome. Awesome. It looks like we are out of questions on that. I do want to let you know we are going to do a giveaway for an Amazon gift card for filling out the evaluation. So please do give us your comments, and thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everybody. I can't wait to see you all in my class. Come take a class.